Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2. Alright, let's kick it. Man, I feel like this series is mainly about Mando just learning to develop some situational awareness. Like, it happens twice in this episode. He goes into the mines, picks up a Mandalorian helmet, and then gets trapped by a General Krabby Patty. And then again, as soon as he steps into the water.
I swear on my name.
Look at this dude.
And the names of the ancestors, that I shall walk the way of the Mandalore.
Wait till you see the...
And the words of the creed
no,
shall be forever forged in my heart.
Bruh. Not a great plan.
It's like he doesn't check shit. He just kind of he just wings it and says this is the way. First off, I just want to apologize. My video on episode 1, I was definitely wrong. They definitely came back with Bo-Katan, and I kind of had the feeling that they would, but hey, there's always a chance, all right? There's always a chance that they would just fuck it up. Who cares? But here's me apologizing, all right? Shut up.
Sorry.
Man, this episode was awesome. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, as is with anything, you can always nitpick and do all that stuff, but it delivered for me on almost everything. It's like my favorite episode so far.
You serious?
Yeah, I know it's the second one, alright? Just stay with me on this. It goes through the progression of Grogu. I don't really care for Mando going and taking a little skinny dip into the lowly waters or whatever the fuck, but he gets to do that. There's a whole bunch of other action, and it actually makes sense. There's so much nuance. For example, when Mando uses the Darksaber, which by the way is awesome. Yes, I had to go back and watch it in Book of Boba Fett. But watching Mando scenes in Book of Boba Fett is like cutting out the rot in the cheese and only eating the cheese. But except when you cut out the rot, it's like 90% of the cheese, so you get left with like a little slice. You know what I mean?
Stop it. Get some help.
But it was great. The pace of this was just as good as the pace of the first one. I thought, you know, from the second episode, it looks like they really just did the first one just as a intro and they kind of rushed it. Whereas the second one, there was a lot of individual little things here and there that you really just had to pay attention to. Grogu's force abilities are awakening. It starts off really on Tatooine where they do the nice throwback to the prequels where they do the pod racing and Anakin is doing his thing. So that's pretty cool. And I'm totally into cars and racing and stuff like that. So it's nice to see these guys actually drift around the corners and stuff. It doesn't look like pod racers. It looks like speeders, like land speeders. Kind of like the one that Luke and Uncle Owen had before he became extra crispy and all that. This is what I was really kind of hoping for the Mandalorian to show, which is Mando kind of going into the backstory of, you know, where he's from and what he does and just getting into the whole Mandalorian culture and things like that. So he was explaining to Grogu kind of that he grew up in the moon, Concordia, and he was also telling Grogu Mandalorians need to learn how to navigate maps because that's kind of just the way it is or whatever, which is awesome because you get it just that Mando is almost training Grogu in a way of a Mandalorian, but it's not really training if you think about it. Mando doesn't have a kid, he doesn't have anybody to take care of, and now that he does, he's kind of taking that upon himself to teach him the only way that he knows, which is the way, I guess. And for those who know, this also kind of explains like why Mando's the way he is, right? And how Bo-Katan's different in that Mando's whole people in Concordia were sort of more traditionalists and hardliners, whereas the people that were on the main planet of Mandalore, you know, had a little bit more progressive views when it came to certain things like wearing a helmet all the time or whatever the case is. They should really get into that a little bit more. I'm sure they will in the next few episodes and things like that, but it's one of those things that casual viewers don't understand, right? You get from the reaction that Bo-Katan had with Mando that, you know, they were very different in terms of their ideals, but it's important that that rift is actually shown in further episodes and things like that as it comes so that casual viewers can pick it up. Of course, like there's lots of really good YouTube videos and stuff like that that explain the differences and things like that on YouTube, but casual viewers aren't going to go down the rabbit hole much. They just want to see the show for what it is, get some of the action, get some of the story, call it a day. Anyway, then he sends his R5 drive off the ship to go and check the quality of air or whatever, but you know, can't your Naboo fighter do that for you? Haven't we come so far in Star Wars where, you know, the ships can actually have a reading and things like that? I know it's a starfighter, not like a larger ship that might have more sensors and things like that. And yes, I know it was stripped for weight and speed or whatever, but I mean, in space, weight doesn't really matter, does it? It's mass that really matters, not weight. But I guess, you know, in some ways it could be somewhat equivalent, especially when you remove, I don't know, whatever, you get with the point.
Stop it. Don't do drugs.
It was really great to see Din Djarin finally use the Darksaber in his own goddamn show, rather than, you know, making cameos in other shows and just trying to make it cool. You need a certain self-resolve to be actually able to wield that, and I'm sure they'll get into that more, because even my wife was asking me, like, why the hell is it so heavy? Is it really heavy? And obviously that didn't matter for Bo-Katan, and she was just kind of wielding it like crazy, and my wife was like, well, is she stronger than him? Like, how does that work? What's going on? Can Mando even lift, bro? Another really good part is how they showed the city of Sundari. I don't know if this is the city of Sundari, because there's the dome behind in the back of that scene there. That's, I think, Sundari, but whatever, like the mine city. it's pretty interesting how they showed how desolate it's become, right? I mean, yes, it's been bombed to shit and the entire planet's been glassed. Pretty much kind of grounds you as to like what these Mandalorians and their background was. In a way, it's kind of their own fault too, right? Because they kind of just were fighting against each other, and that's what Bo-Katan mentioned as well. She's like, you know, they're too busy just being mercenaries and fighting each other. Why don't you go lead them with your dark saber or whatever? So she makes a joke out of it, but it hits home once you really see the bigger picture of things. Part of me just, God, I don't know. It's like Bo-Katan seems to be the only one. I guess we haven't met enough of the new Mandalorians or whatever the case is, because Mando's Creed, Mudhorns or whatever, these guys are all the hardliners, right? That never take off their helmets and stuff. So maybe they're not used to having mythosaurs and things like that in the water on Concordia. But anyway, the sequence was pretty cool, especially when Bo-Katan dives in with her fucking jetpack underwater, dude. And then she gets in there, and it's a pretty cool moment, right? Because it's a full circle. She is laughing at Mando the whole time about being such a hardliner, and then she sees a mythosaur. Like, she's not believed in all these things for a long time. She herself has bathed in these exact waters, right? But for her to see the mythosaur like live and well is like, holy shit, like this kind of stuff actually existed and was true to some degree. It was a full circle kind of episode. I think it really did a good job of outlining what they're potentially going to take seriously and what they're going to move forward in terms of how Mando and Bo-Katan's story will line up. Honestly, I don't think they're going to be a love interest or anything. I do think that Mando is going to have a really tough time, but he, from what I can understand, is eventually going to become some form of a leader, some form of a unifier, because ever since the beginning, right, the theme of the Mandalorians has been that they're always divided. They're always sort of in small numbers everywhere rather than in large numbers in one place. So him with the Darksaber especially, like, he's been trying to pawn that thing off for a while, but now he's kind of forced to use it. And now I think he's going to eventually take the role of the unifier with, for example, someone like Bo-Katan, who actually can speak for the new Mandalorians and the people that aren't such hardliners, with the folks that don't take off their stinky helmets and go bald by the age of 20. They want to bring those people together. Maybe they can repopulate Mandalore. But honestly though, my whole take on the Mandalorian thing is that they need to get away from this whole warring mentality bullshit. I know it sounds cool and makes them look cool, but this is the kind of thing that fucks them up to begin with. It made them lose the war against the Empire. They basically lost their home planet and lost themselves and lost their people. So they need to unify and get with the rest of the world, which is really just trying to do some trade and you know, be a little practical. Anyway, I will catch you on the next one. Guys, you know, I don't ask for this actually, but if you think this rant has been kind of cool, then feel free to subscribe and like. You don't need to share the video. I'm not that important. But most importantly, you know, if you have something to say, just leave it in the comments below so we can chat about it. I'll leave you all to it. May the force be with you and have an awesome day. Peace.